Hi everyone! Welcome to the first episode of Take Me to Chelsea. We're your hosts, Lindsay
and Tamara.
And every week we're going to be rewatching and discussing an episode of the hit UK reality TV show, Made in Chelsea. So let's pop the champagne.
So for those who don't know, this year is actually the 10-year anniversary of Made in Chelsea. It first aired on May 9th, 2011, and I can't believe we're going on season 21 of this reality TV show, and we still love it.
That's so crazy.
Isn't that crazy?
That makes me feel so old.
So let's talk a little bit about where we were when we started watching the show, how we got into it, kind of set the stage.
So we didn't start the show in 2011, right when it premiered. I think we were not too far off. I think we started watching it in 2013, or we discovered it in 2013. We were 23, just moved to Toronto, just graduated from our undergrad at McGill.
Yeah, that seems like a long time ago. I remember having just moved from Montreal to Toronto, and we didn't know a lot of people here. We just got new jobs in the city. I remember that we found this show and we just became instantly addicted to it.
Yeah, I think we watched, because we were, again, like a bit late, I think we watched the whole first series in a day.
Oh my gosh.
Or a weekend, I want to say. It was bad.
Yeah,
I remember we went to a dinner party and we made our friend who was hosting us at the dinner party watch it.
Oh my gosh, that's so
Because we didn't want to
But
stop.
but that sounds terrible. Was it a dinner party? I thought it was just like we were hanging out with her.
Well, she made us dinner.
Okay. we provided the entertainment.
We're like, cannot stop.
No. There was no stopping. As soon as you watch the first episode, I feel like Made in Chelsea is super, super addictive. So what was it that you liked immediately about the show right away?
I think for me, it was probably the humor, coupled with obviously, the trappings of a reality TV show. It hooks you in, but the characters and the sense of humor displayed, like the British humor, I guess, for Canadians.
I'm on exactly the same page as you. I remember when we first started watching one of those intro scenes right away with Hugo and Spencer, and or at least Hugo is completely ripping apart Spencer. And it was so refreshing to see. Not only was it just like a funny TV show, but it was reality. So it's like, oh, you immediately sort of have this kinship for these characters because they're on television, but they're making fun of each other. I don't know. I found that very endearing.
Yeah, and I also remember really relating to Caggie and really being drawn in by her character.
Yeah.
I thought she was really cool. Like, you don't see a heroine, I don't know if you call it that, of reality TV, quite like that. And I just remember feeling like she was super relatable, well-spoken, into music. And, I don't know, I just felt she was a cool role model as well.
So, Linz, let's talk a little bit about our plan for this podcast.
So every week we plan to rewatch an episode starting at the very beginning of Series 1, going over our thoughts and talking about what holds up, what maybe doesn't hold up, just our overall impression of what's going on in each episode.
And something else I really want to talk about while we're going through these episodes are the extremely relatable situations that these cast members find themselves. I mean, obviously this is a very glamorous show and their lives aren't like ours, but in many ways they go through the same circumstances that a young woman in her 20s finds herself in, whether it's a new relationship or feeling insecure in your current relationship or cheating or having feelings for someone else. And I think it'll be really interesting to sort of dive into that.
Okay, let's get started. The first episode of the series is called To the Victor Go the Spoils, and it originally aired on May 9th, 2011. Tam, did you want to give us a synopsis?
Yeah, definitely. So the episode begins with our full cast of characters attending the launch of a jewelry line at a downtown nightclub in Chelsea. Cheska, with her friend Binky to support, plans to feature the event for a magazine blog, immediately putting her at odds with Jewelry Line's owner, Amber, who is appalled at the idea of being labeled a socialite in print. Spencer is keen to meet up with Caggie, a longtime crush of his, despite the fact he actually has a live-in girlfriend who, coincidentally, is out of town. They flirt over glasses of champagne, and we're not really sure if we should be shipping them or not. The next evening, with hangovers aplenty, the group reconvenes to see Caggie make her singing debut. Although Francis, another of Caggie's admirers, brings her a rose, it's Spencer that she's happiest to see. Meanwhile, after a day of recovering in the country with his best gal pals, Ollie dashes off to meet his girlfriend for Sunday night date night.
So if you haven't watched the episode in a while, we definitely recommend that you do. And make sure to hit us up on our Instagram with your thoughts.
So I want to start by talking about this class system that is immediately apparent in the first episode. And I found really interesting coming from Canada, from North America. This is something that's really foreign to us, but it's clear and evident from the very offset of this show. So we have Amber and Rosie, who are kind of like the older money aristocratic family, it seems. And they're very offended by the idea that Cheska is going to come and write this blog post and depict her as a socialite. This is extremely offensive to them.
Cheska is so professional, so lovely, clearly just trying to do like a good job. I wouldn't be worried about how she would present Amber at all. So this antagonism that we're seeing from Rosie and Amber, as somebody who, is getting used to the dynamics of the show, it isn't immediately obvious to me, like why that antagonism exists.
Yeah, I thought that was really strange too. Especially this whole idea that like they're really offended by the idea of being associated with like a Carrie Bradshaw type. They keep talking about that. And I think, honestly, like I think they were very concerned about their public image and being on this show and being put in a certain light. But I don't know that it came off very well.
Well, I was thinking too, maybe they're trying to position themselves against America, especially like reality shows like The Hills or Laguna Beach or other similar type shows. They're probably trying to make their stamp on this world by putting themselves like as everything that they are not, maybe.
Yeah, no,
so
that's
really strongly like, this is not our culture. American culture, we're better than that.
We're in a reality show, but we're not the same kind of reality show as the North American. Yeah. I don't think it really puts Rosie and Amber in an immediate likability kind of. I don't think they come off like the best when primarily their presence on the show is just talking about how offensive this seemingly very honest and forthcoming woman who's just trying to write a blog post. They're immediately like kind of mean girl to her, to be honest.
Unless you're positioning them as a villain, what's the point of making them so unlikable right off the get-go? It's not something I feel that can be sustainable.
I don't think they were necessarily trying to portray them as the villains. I saw it more as like another way to differentiate the show. Like I think the showrunners were very much involved in the idea that this is a different kind of reality show. It's not like everyone's trashy. Like there are levels of class, and we're going to be, it's this window or door into this kind of secret exclusive world. I think it was very much a thoughtful approach.
Right. But then you have some characters like the boys, Spenny and Hugo, and Caggie and Millie, who are obviously from the upper crust, like all of these characters are, but they don't have that attitude or that elitism that's so apparent.
Yeah. So as we talk about this, we obviously can't neglect Mark Francis, who I think in this episode and throughout the rest of the season, and I would argue the series, he's like the epitome of this conversation. And even in the first episode, he talks about like how high street fashion is just not acceptable and talking about like what's in, what's out. But he's right away this symbolic figure when it comes to like this upper class and what that represents.
Yeah, he's very clearly establishing the rules of this world, if there are rules, like what one should look like, how Chelsea girls don't or shouldn't eat. So offensive.
So offensive. That's offensive.
Yeah, he has never met Binky or Cheska, but comments on the fact that Binky has cellulite because she eats.
Oh my goodness, I completely forgot about
Can you
that.
imagine like today if that someone said that today?
No, that would never get on television today. Like,
No.
not even in current seasons would they talk about something like that. And that was only 10 years ago. But yeah, definitely reinforcing this idea that Chelsea's an exclusive world. God forbid you eat, God forbid you have cellulite, and if you do, you're out. So
So we're going to be obviously keeping tabs on Mark Francis as we go, how he evolves as a character and what he comes to represent
or
going forward.
devolves, maybe is the better term. You know what's interesting though about Mark Francis is he's very he's such an isolated character. And this is something we see throughout, is like he's not ever really part of the storylines. He's not part of the plot necessarily. He's just kind of this social commentary. And I think it's what makes Made in Chelsea separate from other reality shows in a lot of ways. So yeah, definitely interesting to keep tabs on Mark Francis, or as we like to call him, Mark Francis.
Mark Francis.
That's our best British accent. Horrible. Okay.
So we're really brought into this world through the eyes of Caggie, and Caggie's really the one who we're following mainly at this point in the first episode. So immediately it's established that she has a flirtation, a crush with Spencer.
Some sort of relationship.
It's implied that there's some sort of long-standing crush or feelings between the two, although he has a live-in girlfriend.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. This is really weird because I find in a general type of like TV show drama, there's like you have your main character who obviously filled by Caggie. This is, like you said, through her eyes. And then you have Spencer, who's supposed to be the love interest. But, and like I was kind of saying in the synopsis, like I'm not sure what we're meant to feel about these characters. Because I remember the very first time watching this show and thinking like, oh, Caggie and Spencer, like I want them to be together. But rewatching it, I definitely didn't get the same opinion. And I don't know if it's because I'm not like early 20s anymore, so I don't have this kind of like overly dramatized idea of what romance should look like. But Spencer, like you said, has a girlfriend who he lives with. Funda, who seems fine. Like she seems lovely. There's doesn't seem to be like anything. She doesn't seem like to be a horrible girlfriend.
No, she calls him out on his crap. Like
always a good sign.
Yeah, she seems to be mature and in tune with his weirdness, like what's going on.
But he's sketchy right away. Like at the club when he's flirting with Caggie, they're sipping champagne, and he's talking about how he's always had feelings for her. Like it's really like set up, and she seems to not fully understand his situation. Like obviously they've known each other since they were, I guess, adolescents. But she seems surprised that he's living with his girlfriend. She seems to know he has a girlfriend, but maybe she knows Spencer is kind of a playboy. Maybe she doesn't take it too seriously. But for the flip side, then we see him at home with his girlfriend, and they're very lovey-dovey. Obviously, moving in with a girlfriend is a huge step. It's not something you do lightly.
Yeah, super immature. A real sign of being in your young 20s, I think, his perspective or how he's handling everything. And I think one thing also that really stood out to me was Caggie's behavior. How she just... Obviously, she's engaging with Spencer. She's flirting with Spencer. She's playing the part, which I don't know how much was predetermined or not. But she seems very uncomfortable with this love triangle.
Yeah, so let's talk about that a little bit. Like, how involved do you think Caggie is in this kind of love triangle? Like, I feel like it's almost like the producer's pushing her towards this, and maybe she's even been misled to think Spencer's like almost on the way out of a relationship.
Yeah, and I think in some reality shows, her character would just go for it, unabashedly maybe, and just, this is what's going on. I'm going to be pursuing Spencer, but you can see the side of Caggie where... And it might be because, I don't know, like behind the scenes, she's new to filming, but her just like deep sense of uncomfortableness with being in this role. So she's trying to play into it, like, and how it's cut, like when Spencer arrives at her show, she's texting him, she's so happy he's there, it seems.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, like, you can just, like, it makes me awkward watching this sometimes, because I just feel like she's so awkward.
Yeah, I agree. What's kind of insane is that Funda, as the girlfriend, is being portrayed as like the other woman, or like the antagonist. And I think we have to be very aware and cognizant of when women are portrayed in this fashion. Like the guy Spencer has infinite excuses. Like, it's charming, it's cute, he's like desperately in love with Caggie, so he's kind of excused for his behavior. But like, let's call this what this is. This is terrible boyfriend behavior. Like, this is not charming, this isn't cute. He's presumably in a very serious relationship. And I know you mentioned like, oh, he's in his early 20s, but he's in his early 20s. Like, he's not 16 anymore. He's obviously had the wherewithal to move in with this woman and cultivate a relationship with her. And yet he's blatantly disrespecting her, not only to the other woman he's interested in, but also to his friends. Like, we have to look at this from a different perspective. And that's not just about Caggie. I love Caggie, and I think looking back on this, I definitely have a different perspective of her motivations, because I don't think she's as into it as you were mentioning. Like, she comes off as very uncomfortable. I don't think she wants to be in this situation, but I really feel bad for Funda kind of being brought in, and I wonder kind of what she was told when this show was kind of pitched to her, if she was told she was the other woman. Like, this is not a fun kind of role to play. I wonder what Funda feels about being portrayed in this light. Okay, we have to talk about Ollie and his date now. This is probably the most controversial topic in this episode. Ollie is sitting with Cheska and Binky. They're talking about the fact that Ollie has a date. He's asking if his hair looks okay. He's making sure, do I have enough fake tan on? But I felt like watching this for the first time, this was a gay man going on a date with a man. And we shouldn't obviously put any assumptions on this. We don't know his sexuality. We don't know his preferences. But this is kind of how I thought the episode was set up. But he shows up at this restaurant, and it's a woman waiting for him. And it's done near the end of the episode. And I feel like it was very much formulated to be this kind of shock factor. What do you think about that? Did you have the same impression as me, where you were kind of surprised that it was a woman?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely cut to be a big reveal at the end when Gabriella's there waiting for him at his date. You're led to believe in how they piece together the show that, I mean, he might be gay or bisexual. And of course, we want to definitely say that in this day and age, I think we've come a long way in society in terms of how we view gender and how gender identity is expressed. And of course, if a man wears pink, wears fake tan, likes makeup, we don't have to assume that he's gay or identifies that way. But
I think we're looking at it in the context of 10 years ago when this show came out. Mm-hmm. And it's definitely a different conversation today than it was 10 years ago. But you're right about talking about like piecing it together. Like, obviously they've filmed a lot more that isn't shown in this first episode. So I think that's kind of what we're coming at it from, is like how they've edited it down, where Ollie, I mean, even like in the first sort of scene when Binky comes out and puts bronzer on, and he's like, oh, like, you know, put some bronzer on me. That obviously wasn't all he talked about. But he's kind of positioned in this certain way. And I'm wondering if they would do the same thing today. And I don't think they would, but
I don't think they would either. But I do remember the whole first series and maybe onward, this is a storyline. This plays out over and over again when talking about Ollie's sexuality. So, I mean, they do use it. We will return to it a lot. And it's not, what I remember is it's not a simple coming out storyline.
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, obviously, Ollie just got married to the love of his life, who is a man. And in this season, he comes out as bisexual. So I think maybe that's what the producers are trying to do and make it kind of exciting as a show. I just wonder if they'd take those same liberties today.
All that being said, we are introduced to Gabriella, and I think they were obviously together before the show happened, so they're a real relationship, real feelings there. I don't know how long they were together before.
She's so sweet. She's so nice.
She's so sweet, and she clearly adores him.
Yeah.
And she's almost in position, like the way they show the date seems a little uninterested, and she's so interested.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's obviously not a one-sided relationship.
The way that Ollie speaks to and of Gabby is sometimes like disinterested. I don't know if that you could clip a relationship that was genuinely like very, very loving in that same
You totally
way. Okay,
could.
maybe you could. Okay, you're right. No, you're right. I take that back. But I do think that I think the truth of the matter, regardless of whether or not they could clip it that way, I think it was much more one-sided. Like, I think Ollie was probably really into it to begin with, and they got together. But I think by this point, it's waning. And Gabrielle is very, very interested in Ollie, and I think she's probably in love with him. And she's hoping to make this work. And my heart goes out to her because I feel like it's hard to be in a relationship where, the feelings are lopsided. And maybe, kind of even the way she positions it, and she says, how do you feel about me? And he kind of, I like you a lot. And she says, oh, I'd do anything for you. There's nothing in the world I wouldn't do for you. Like, that's such a different level of emotion coming from him versus her. And that can't be necessarily edited. Like, I don't believe for a second that he followed that up with you. I'm desperately in love with you. So I think it takes an interesting turn, and we'll have lots to say about that.
So Tam, what's your favorite moment in this episode?
Favorite moment, I think, definitely has to be Hugo and Spencer in the car on the way to the club, and they're formulating a text, obviously to Caggie. Spencer's like, oh, just say that we're en route. And Hugo's like, oh, that's such an interesting text. You're definitely going to get a text back with that. And just like making fun of him. And I found that super endearing. I love when people are self-deprecating, and Spencer plays into that a little bit. And I think it was just really endearing overall, and probably sets us up to excuse a lot of Spencer's behavior later on because he is quite charming.
I think mine would definitely have to be, which we haven't talked about yet, the infamous Winnie the Pooh, Charles Dickens moment with Binky and the gang and the countryside. The three of them together are so lovable. They have such a natural chemistry. Their banter, I just find so charming and warm, and you just want to spend more time with them in general. But this particular moment where they're talking about Winnie the Pooh, Biggie thinks it's Charles Dickens, and then Ollie's reaction, Charles Dickens, Winnie the Pooh.
Winnie the Pooh.
It's one of the most iconic lines, I think, in the whole series. Yeah. 21 series.
And good for them for including in the first episode, because right away, that was hilarious. And you just think, I want to watch the next episode.
Mm-hmm. We also wanted to spend a bit of time in each episode just talking about the music of Made in Chelsea. I remember watching it the first time, thinking how great the music was, and there's so much overlap between what I was listening to and what was on the show. It also turned me on to a lot of music, and I remember thinking at the time, and even now, like, such a cool job being like the music supervisor for a show like this. Mm-hmm. Of course, we would be remiss if we didn't mention the theme song, Midnight City by M83.
Iconic.
So iconic. Every time I hear those first opening notes, I cannot think of anything else except Made in Chelsea. And I remember when we were in university listening to the song Hello.
Oh yeah, by Dragonette
so much, and it was in this episode, and it just totally brought me back to that time.
I loved that song. So that's it. That's all, folks. That was episode 1. Join us next week for episode 2, where we go to France with Cheska, Binky, Ollie, and Gabby, and we get to see Funda and Caggie meet for the very first time. Thanks for joining, and we'll see you soon.